this is the moment where the village comes together in a way that perhaps it wasn't coming together last month or the month before or the year before, but it's just gotta happen. It's literally got to happen, because when we take a step back, when we're silent, when we are too fatigued to follow directions, then the most vulnerable amongst us suffer. And I measure our success not by who the greatest of billionaires is doing. I measure our success by how our most vulnerable populations are faring. And right now they're scared.
Recorded at Amplified Studio in downtown Des Moines, Give and Grow is more than a podcast. It's a commitment to our community. Founded by Andy and Sarah Suzanen alongside the RIA Group, this initiative is dedicated to uplifting the organizations and individuals who work every day to make Central Iowa a better place for all. Welcome to the Give and Grow podcast, where we share the stories of the nonprofits transforming lives in our community. Each organization is featured in 3 episodes, offering a deeper, more personal look at their impact. Through conversations with passionate staff, generous donors, and the very people whose lives have been changed by their work, our hope is simple: to connect, inspire, and strengthen the bonds that make our community thrive.
So we get to launch Give and Grow by highlighting the expansive nonprofit Oakridge Neighborhood. Oakridge plays such a critical role in our community by providing affordable housing, along with family-centered social services and programs to hundreds of people in need each year. So it's a challenge to summarize all that Oakridge does, and I'm pleased to have its CEO, Deidre DeJear, here to help us understand her organization and learn more about the wins and challenges that Oakridge is experiencing these days. So welcome, Deidre.
Happy to be here.
So this is our first episode of Give and Grow, and also the first of 3 episodes that will feature Oakridge. So awesome. We'll interview you, and then the next one will be a board member, Carol Bodensteiner, and then we will feature a beneficiary. So Zami Denke will come in and talk to us as well. We're excited to get to know you and help raise awareness about all the good stuff you're doing.
It's always a good opportunity to talk about entities in our community that are helping to push the community forward. And more often than not, those very same entities that are pushing the community forward are very instrumental in being problem solvers in our community, because we got a lot of problems out there, and not everybody's getting in line to solve them. Most people want to get in line to talk about them, but perhaps there is a special, unique ability that some community members have in actually putting a plan to resolve it. And I'm really lucky that we're in a community, not just Oakridge, but just in the greater Des Moines community, where there's good people who are insistent on not just talking about the problem, but putting some intellectual thought about how we get over it.
That's encouraging. I really love Des Moines for that too. We're doers. I grew up on a farm. We're resourceful.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
Just south of Des Moines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool
so
beans.
Real
like New
Irish
Virginia
Catholic
area?
Farm family.
Okay.
No, just south of Cumming.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I take 35 south to go to Oklahoma when I go visit family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So right by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was great experience. And I know how I married an East Coaster, and they do know how to talk about things. They're very intellectual. And meeting my family, who we don't really talk that much. We do.
You do. And you can do without talking. It's like you just grunt and
kind of
give each other eye
Totally.
contact. No, that's not what you do. Yes, I know that family very well.
Yeah. So it's good to hear that you're experiencing the doers in Des Moines, because we do need a lot of them these days. So why don't you start us off by telling us how you describe Oakridge Neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. The most simplistic way to describe Oakridge is that it is more than just a home. That is really the easiest way for me to describe it. If you could imagine back during urban renewal, when highways and byways were trying to insert themselves in communities, Des Moines just so happened to be one of those communities with the insertion of 235. And what 235, while it brought in commerce for our community and it brought in visitors for our community, what it also did, perhaps the unintended or intended consequence, was that it disrupted an already existing thriving economy in the Des Moines area, which was a metropolis for Blacks in Des Moines. There were homes, single family homes, there were doctors, there were clubs, there were lawyers, anything and everything someone needed within their reach was there, which was incredibly important during a time where not everybody had vehicles. We didn't really have public transportation, so on and so forth. And so there was a disruption that occurred, and there were a group of nuns, faith community members, business leaders who saw what was left of Center Street after 235 came through and really wanted to preserve the integrity of that land with something that they could just produce. They wanted to preserve it with growth. And so therein was the plan to develop Oakridge Neighborhood. And there was a mission of preservation that existed there, but they went beyond just the home. They went beyond saying we need to help find our people to help find places to live. And they began to offer support services. They hired a social worker. They started a youth employment program for youth who wanted jobs and needed jobs. And then they started a child care program, which eventually became what is known to many as the highest rated child care service in the state, Oak Academy. And so I say all that to say, at that point in time when they were trying to preserve, what they didn't know that they were doing was really living out a vision of sustainability for Iowa families that it continued to exist today. There are organizations similar to Oakridge that were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like Oakridge. My family grew up in housing organizations like Cabrini Green in Chicago, and there's others that I had family members who were in New Orleans in these types of spaces. And what sets Oakridge apart from all of these housing, at that time they called them projects, we don't use that term anymore, but what sets Oakridge apart from that is, one, Oakridge is still standing.
Right.
And the reason it's still standing is because of the supportive services. However, those supportive services would have meant nothing without the support of the community. And so that's the other added advantage. Because we have community members that support the organization and its mission, we're able to not only to continue to exist, but we're also able to provide these services in such a way that's paramount to none.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by the breadth of services that you're able to offer. And when did you get involved? How did you come to know Oakridge in the first place?
So I was approaching the former CEO, Teree Caldwell-Johnson, with a few concepts of work that I wanted to do in the community. And she said yes to those and created space for me to kind of get my hands dirty in that way. But she also offered me an opportunity to perhaps sharpen my skills at Oakridge. Now, mind you, at this time, I'm a new business owner, basically right out of college. And I think I know everything that is necessary to know in this world. And she was just so polite and kind to this child who felt like she knew everything, that she created space to teach this child who thought she knew everything. And so she eventually offered me a contract at Oakridge after I started volunteering for the organization on one of the event committees. The event committee was my way of getting to know the mission of Oakridge. There's nothing like getting involved in an event to get to know an organization.
Absolutely.
And so that was my intro. And so I was so impacted by getting to know the organization that I then started doing a little bit of storytelling. And that is what I originally got my second legitimate contract through Oakridge, to help tell the story of the good work that it was doing throughout our community. At that time, there were so many preconceived notions about what was happening in the community that the good was being overshadowed by those preconceived notions. And so we started to tell our story better amongst donors, amongst neighbors, neighbors, and even amongst residents in the Oakridge neighborhood, so that they could understand the impact of it. And
That's
an
important aspect too.
It was because the story needed to be told in more ways than one. And so, that trajectory really set us off leading into the 50th year and then the 55th year and going deeper into that storytelling. Because there's nothing like truly understanding the impact that you or someone around you has on a group of fellow community members. And I think that is what Oakridge is good at doing, is making that impact and telling the story to not only inspire more work to happen at Oakridge, but inspire work to happen all over. Yeah.
Yeah. To set an example, I do find that the storytelling is so impactful. And a lot of times, nonprofits are not so great at telling their own story, and I think
they're so busy. We've got all the things to do, and telling someone what we did is the last thing we've got time for. Right?
Exactly.
We did it next.
Right. It's so true. I mean, very, very true. So I appreciate that the organization valued that enough to make it a priority, because I do think that that's made a huge difference just from my limited standpoint of knowing Oakridge. And just being able to really see the community and in our community and know what you're doing and be able to be a good advocate and a good neighbor. I helped develop Mainframe Studios. So that was right on Center Street. And I was so glad to know the history of Center Street and being able to help tell that story. And I think the more people that are knowledgeable of our community history and think about the possibilities of what it can become, and not only preserve but move forward the great things that were there and were taken away from this community that made Des Moines great for Black people and people that were not served as well as others. So I was happy to have it a neighbor to Mainframe, and I'm really glad about the Oak Studio that ended up going in the lower level. It sounds like that's thriving.
Yes, it is.
That's so exciting.
Yes.
One question I think is always important to ask in especially executive directors and CEOs and board members is just about your budget. Donors like to know how you're doing financially. I saw that you, 2023, you had an annual report. I looked at that. You had about a $7.6 million budget. And a quarter of that is public funding. And recently you commented to KCCI when they were looking for comments about the scare that the current administration had on freezing public funding. Now we have to, as if fundraising wasn't hard enough, having to plan so much for uncertainty in the future, even though that funding was released eventually. Is that right?
So we were not an organization that was specifically impacting by a funding freeze, at least at this point in time. And at the time of the EOs, we weren't either, the executive orders. But needless to say, because of the impact of those orders, there have been some shifts that have been made. There have been shifts that have been made related to how funding organizations give. There have been shifts related to what types of programs people are willing to fund based on who it serves. And I say that from a federal level all the way down to a basic nonprofit organization who disperses funds. I have heard on many occasions that some are halting on the account that they might get sued, which is always an inevitable risk in delivering services. However, they're preemptively making those adjustments on the account of it. I've also heard that people are making these changes on the account that they might not receive federal funds because of how they are using those federal funds. from my vantage point, that is the prerogative of any person. If they have the power to choose, then they should use their power to do just that, choose. But what remains the same is the need that exists in our community.
Right.
The need to provide affordable and safe housing for our community members. For a state that is short in about 30,000 workforce units and a city of high density in Des Moines that is short on safe and affordable housing, that need's not going anywhere anytime soon. Oakridge addresses the need with childcare gaps and childcare shortages. That need is not going anywhere anytime soon. We know that when we look at our kindergarten reading scores, we know they can do better. Organizations like Oakridge, we're not glorified babysitters. We're there to literally teach our children and prepare them to walk through those classroom doors every August and go to kindergarten. The need for opportunities to provide for your family via having a job. We are working with individuals on resume prep, on prepping them for interviews. We even have a Ride to Jobs program so that people can have a dignified work experience and bring home the bacon, if you will, and be happy about providing for their families. None of those needs, and those are just a few of them that we meet the need for, none of those are going to go away anytime soon when we've got rows and rows of people who are being laid off from their jobs, including government workers, right? And so regardless of the funding mechanism, our role in this community is to make sure the pathway is there for people to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. There are times when government is completely and totally invested in that. There are times when administrations are not invested in that. When they're not invested, then we pull ourselves up with our bootstraps, if you will, as community members, specifically those who've got boots and who've got straps that work, and we fit the bill for how much it's going to cost. The burden that the federal government is putting on our community members is not a burden that many people like. However, it's a burden that's necessary to carry. I only say it in that way and respond because I literally have zero control of what happens with the federal government right now. But I have a lot of community members that I know and trust and love to make sure that their community is thriving. And so this is the moment where the village comes together in a way that perhaps it wasn't coming together last month or the month before or the year before, but it's just got to happen. It's literally got to happen, because when we take a step back, when we're silent, when we are too fatigued to follow directions,